Hi guys. Um, if you are subscribed, thank you so much for clicking on another video. I love and appreciate you so much. I hit 2,000 subscribers this month, so thank you guys. So I have been diagnosed with bipolar disorder type 1 with psychotic features and mixed episodes around 7 years ago. Up until that point, I had really suffered throughout my life. My diagnosis means that not only do I experience extreme highs and lows in my moods, and manic episodes and hypomania, but I also experience psychosis, where I have firm fixed beliefs that are not based in reality. I can see things, hear things, smell things that are not there, and have delusions of grandeur, everything that happens when you're psychotic. So because of that, I really suffered throughout my life, and I experienced a lot of psychotic episodes. So if you are interested in learning about that, those are on the front page of my channel. And so I do this channel in order to help people like me feel less alone, and to help loved ones better understand someone that they love that might be suffering with bipolar disorder. So today I want to talk about one of you guys left a comment, and I appreciate you, and I have seen comments from you before, so I do remember who you are, and I appreciate you. So that said, this individual let me know about Joe Rogan's recent show, podcast / radio show, where the discussion of bipolar disorder comes up. And some really hurtful things were said.
You know, having a relationship with someone who's bipolar is almost impossible, no matter how much you love them. And if you're having a romantic relationship with someone who's bipolar, which I've done, it's like 1,000 times harder from like a buddy.
Ooh, ouch. And so I watched this segment several times. It really hurt. It really stung. But after I watched it more and more times, I realized that there's a lot of information that's really helpful, though it's some of it's inaccurate and a lot of it is incomplete. And it gave a vibe of, the whole segment gave a vibe of poor bipolar people. They're tortured artists who should not have relationships and should not have children. So I guess all bipolar people should just go to an island and hang out with other unlovable individuals. But that was not the intention, obviously. I'm going to react to that, tell you guys about it, and I just want to say that people with bipolar disorder are not unlovable. They are not always the hardest relationship that you'll ever have. They are not always going to be the most painful thing that has ever taken place in your life, your experiences with them. Some of us are diagnosed very early and put on medication, and we are able to live lives that are as functional as people who don't have bipolar disorder. Yes, we have extra struggles. Yes, our loved ones might have extra struggles, but we are not impossible to have relationships with, and we're not, we shouldn't be considered exempt from having children. Okay, so it starts off, Joe Rogan and Sebastian are talking about how much they enjoy being parents. They love being parents. And then one of them says, well, you have to have children with the right person. And so then they start talking about volatile relationships. And Sebastian goes in this story about a friend of his who was on vacation with this woman, and they were walking past the store window, and she stopped to look in there, and he kept walking, and then realized that she had stayed there, and he took that opportunity to grab a cab, go back to the hotel, check out, hop on a plane, and leave. And he just ditched her like that. And so Joe Rogan's like, wow, that's crazy. But I get it. And so he says, relationships can be like, rob you of your peace and cause anxiety and cause physical pain, and they're talking about toxic relationships. And Sebastian goes, oh yeah, I have 2 friends that are bipolar. So already they've said, well, you shouldn't have kids and you shouldn't have a relationship with someone who's bipolar. Basically, he's talking about his friend who has bipolar disorder. One of them has his life to bipolar. He took his own life. He says that his relationships, or that the experiences that he had with the people that he knows who are bipolar,
It is really, in some ways, the most painful experiences of my life.
So that's probably true. It can be. I know that that's probably true for a lot of people that I know. But it's not necessarily the case for everyone. You can be diagnosed really young, and if you're on medication, you can live a life that is perfectly normal. I mean, you'll have challenges. You might still have mood episodes and stuff like that. But if you're on medication and therapy, you can have a relationship. I have relationships with people. People have relationships with me. It's not impossible. Sebastian brings up the point that he had to bail in one of the situations with one of the people that he knows with bipolar, just like his friend did. He had to do something similar, not the exact same thing, but something similar, because a lot of people do have to walk away when we're in crisis.
Someone's bipolar, that's like, it's also volatile. That's sometimes your only choice.
And it's sad, but it is the reality. So then Joe Rogan says, wow, how do those folks deal with something like that? And then so Sebastian's like,
Lithium saved two people that I know of that I really loved, a guy and a woman that I dated.
Talking about medication, which is great. And they're advocating for medication. And then Joe Rogan brings up an even better point, is like, well, what happens is, what are the negative effects of that? And then so Sebastian says,
well, you're emotionally flat. You put on weight. All kinds of stuff. All kinds of stuff that's better than suicide.
Some medicines can cause diabetes. Some can cause high blood pressure. So the average person with bipolar disorder is on 7 different types of medication, and it can be a real challenge finding the proper mix of medication for you. Some people are med resistant. And then Sebastian starts talking about how people need to be honest with their psychiatrist in their reporting. And he uses an example like, hey.
And what bipolar people do, they are so, I think on some level, so fearful and defended, psychologically defended, that they have a very hard time saying, yeah, my wife's mad at me, but on the other hand, I was kind of a dick.
Saying that, somebody with bipolar is incapable of reporting their bad behavior. I don't think that that's true. I don't agree with that at all. There are some people who maybe have difficulties taking accountability, but I don't know if that's as a result of bipolar disorder. Sometimes it is, sometimes maybe it's not. But I think the most difficult thing with conveying your symptoms, because it is difficult to convey your symptoms to a psychiatrist, but for me personally, and I know for a lot of other people, the difficult part about conveying your symptoms to your psychiatrist is the shame involved in it. I've talked about this before. I was terrified, embarrassed, and ashamed to tell my psychiatrist that I was thinking of ending my own life. I am embarrassed and shameful of talking to my psychiatrist about particular delusions that I've had. And then there's also the issue of when you are involuntarily committed. Sometimes when you're involuntarily committed, you're completely out of your mind, but you might figure out that the proper thing to say to the doctors to let you out of there, because they tend to say before you leave, or when you meet with your psychiatrist, one of the things that they say when you're in a psych ward is, are you hearing any voices? You might be hearing voices and you might report no, because if you say no, you'll get to go home. Which doesn't really make any sense because you're psychotic, but that's an inexplainable part. Like my husband was saying, going off topic, but like my husband was saying, it's weird that in regards to a friend of mine, it's weird that she knows what she's saying sounds crazy, because she'll say, I know you won't believe me and I know it sounds crazy. And he's like, it's weird that she knows that that's crazy. And I'm like, yeah, I don't think it's weird, but that's because I'm bipolar and I've had delusions. So, but going off topic. But anyway, he uses the word victim-centered, and that's really cruel and unfair. I didn't like that term. It was kind of hurtful. a lot of us definitely notice when we've hurt someone, and that's why we have so much shame and guilt. So it's not all victim centered. Many of us are completely aware of how much we've hurt others. So then he talks about schizoaffective. He says, well, there's some disorders that are really hard, like schizoaffective, because they reject the illness. They'll tell you they're fine. So this was a little bit annoying because that's the case with bipolar disorder as well, and any other psychotic illness or illness that has symptoms of psychosis, because you don't know you're sick and you think everyone else is sick, and it's a particular symptom called anosognosia, and it is the unawareness of an illness. So there are a lot of different illnesses that is the case, and that's one of the reasons that makes bipolar so hard to treat as well. So it's not just schizoaffective, it's bipolar disorder, it's schizophrenia, it can be borderline personality disorder. Kind of the end of this conversation is Sebastian's telling a story about how there was this book, or there's some story about this warrior way back when who had been in combat and had really suffered because of it, and then had PTSD and had this situation where he went up on a hill and I guess had a delusion and had a vision that soldiers were attacking him, and then he snapped out of it and realized he killed a herd of sheep. So then they're talking about, well, how could you, so the guy ended his own life. He realized once he killed all the sheep, he realized that, you know, he was dangerous. And so he buried his sword and ran and landed on it. And so they were talking about how, you know, how could you not end your own life if that's what you thought was going to happen? So basically they're talking about the feelings of being a burden, which, if you're bipolar, like, you know that this is, you know, you've probably felt like a burden at one point in your life, because we lash out at people. Sometimes people have to take care of us. People have to be there for us all the time. So feeling like a burden is definitely a big part of it. So then they go into talking about how how they both have friends who are bipolar, and they're just like creative geniuses, and how one of them, I guess he was referring to guitar, because he was saying he could riff for hours and people would be loving it, but he was also incredibly depressed, and he was the one that ended his life. And then Joe Rogan talks about a comedian who was really amazing. So basically they start kind of going into the glorification of the hypomania aspect of bipolar disorder, and how we basically have superpowers. Some people like to think they have superpowers or something like that. Or an enhanced creativity, which it can increase your creativity. But they were saying how, you know, how it must be hard when you credit something, when your career is so successful because you have an illness. So that's kind of everything that they talked about. And they talked about medication. They talked about side effects. They talked about being honest with your psychiatrist. They talked about anosognosia and bipolar superpower. So they basically talked about everything, a lot of things that center around bipolar disorder. I just wanted to fill in the holes and let you guys know that, you know, bipolar disorder, people have a lot of really incredible attributes. Bipolar people have a lot of incredible attributes. Some of us are very creative. Not all of us are creative, but some of us are very creative. Some of us are artists. A lot of us will go extra lengths to like read self-help books and improve ourselves, because we are so affected by our mood and our emotions. So we can be better partners in that way. Sometimes we have a better spiritual connection with certain things. We are amazing friends, and we have, when we're medicated, and we have, some of us have, like most of us have, a lot of empathy because we have been through so much. So you can have a relationship with a bipolar individual and and it's not impossible. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you guys. I hope this video was helpful and organized enough. I don't know, I tried. Okay, I'll talk to you later. Bye!